You gave Golden Sun a 10 out of 10? I thought Golden Sun was the third one.
God.
Oh my gosh.
I was gonna say I was actually enjoying your company at one point in this podcast. Like seriously,
Bye.
I was going to walk away and say, you know what? She's a decent, upstanding citizen. That's what I was going to say.
Golden Sun,
Yes.
10 out of 10.
Yes.
Please. Oh my gosh. I am not watching another Rings of Power episode. I am not even tuning in to season 2. You could not pay me.
Here. Welcome to the To Ramble podcast. My name is Richard.
My name is Austin.
And we have a very special guest today.
Me?
No, you're never special and you're never a guest.
Okay.
Today we have Bookborn from YouTube. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello, thanks for having me, guys. Happy to join in.
Absolutely. We are honored to have you on. And this is fun because usually we're those booktubers that when you have another person to talk with, it's very easy to just keep that going. And when we do reach out occasionally, you're one of the rare ones that you got lucky enough to get the To Ramble invitation and actually accept it. We've asked so many people. Thank you for being on. This is going to be fun. We want to get into the general scope of this conversation, the pros and cons of BookTube. And coming from you, you've been in the BookTube space longer than us. We saw you. We have a lot to talk about, a lot to gush about, especially you being in the Sanderson Trust of the Emerald Sea. Oh my goodness. So I can't imagine. I just want to lob this general question, see where we go from here. I have 5 big topics, and the very first one is actually this. You being in BookTube now for a couple years, what do you think about reading itself? Has the joy of reading stayed with you? Or has something happened where you're starting to read, maybe it's getting mixed with content? Are you starting to lose it, or where are you at currently?
Both, I think. Both have lost some of its luster and also as great as it ever was. I think I don't like the pressure that I have to finish things when I'm not feeling it. Like, it just feels like I can never take a break from reading. Whereas previously there might be like a week or two where I'm sick or, whatever, life's in the way and I'm not reading. And that was normal. And now I feel like this weight of, when's the last time you posted on Instagram? When's the last time you reviewed a book on YouTube? And I don't love that. But that being said, I now have a ton of friends to talk books with, which I didn't have previously. So that is more fun and definitely makes reading a lot more fun than it used to be.
Yeah, I always see, we don't have a Goodreads account. Do you have a Goodreads account?
I don't. Oh my gosh, you guys don't have a Goodreads account either? That is
No.
We're the rare
I think
Pokemon spotted in the wild.
Yes.
I think I may have set it up with a Gmail. I just haven't used it.
Yeah, no, not at all.
Yeah, no.
But I see, the reason I bring that up is I see on Goodreads, I don't know if you both see this, because I do see reviews, although I don't post myself. I'll see people have the goals of reading 50 or 100, 150 in a year, these goals that I could never reach. Would you ever do that? Do you set a goal? Do either of you? Because, Rich, I've never asked this of you. I just don't care to ask you, but I guess I'll include you. But do either of you ever have this reading goal of, I'm going to get 50 done this year?
This is so crazy. I just filmed a video about this exact thing that I'm going to post in 2 weeks. Which is
we can critique that one too, because I don't know if
you
for
can
the
critique
audience
it. It's about why I don't have a Goodreads. And one of the main reasons is I hate the book number goals. I hate them. I don't hate if people want to do it. That's their own business. I don't really care. But I don't like the competition aspect that it has brought to the book reading community, as if the only way to be a book lover is if you read an ungodly amount every year. Like, I have responsibilities. I can't read 100 books a year. That's just not going to happen. And again, no shade. Right. But the one year I tried to set like a number for myself, I felt like it changed my reading habits for the worse. I wasn't reading as complicated books. I was purposely avoiding long books. I was trying to find books I thought I could get through quickly to reach this goal. And I think it harmed my reading personally.
Okay. I can definitely see that, because I wouldn't want to, for example, Discworld are fairly short books. And if I wanted
to jump in, she did review Small Gods. I saw on your Instagram. Didn't love it as much as you do, Rich. Just want to say that. Point of contention.
That could be a. We'll save that discussion for a little later.
I'm trying to start conflict. Like I'm here to interrupt you on your answers and start conflict. All right, so go ahead, Rich.
But to the point, Discworld has such short books that if I was hitting a number goal, I would tear through Discworld, and that would be 42, I think, 41 or 42 books for the year, and I could kill those really quickly. However, kind of takes some of the joy out of it. I love Discworld as like this, it's my nice palate cleanser book. After I finish a big, long, heavy series that was all serious, I go to a Discworld, and it's just so enjoyable that I don't think I'd want to read it just to get the number up.
Yeah, I've seen. So we were lucky enough to have Brian McClellan on. Love him. He's great. He told us that he just doesn't read anymore. Or as much as he used to, because something about writing, he doesn't want to read as much. And I know Daniel Green, similarly, I don't know if this is still the case. It was on a podcast from like a year ago, but was saying that the reading starts to get to him when he's trying to increase the number and do things just for the content. And we haven't felt that yet because I guess we read hardly enough. We need to read more, if anything. Yeah. But I imagine for you, at Bookborn, do you ever have a situation where you would have DNF'd a book, but you need to finish it because you have to post a review?
No, because I never DNF, and I never DNF'd even before I started BookTube. So
what's that about?
Interesting.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I've only DNF'd 2 books in I think the last 15 years.
Well, we gotta ask. Yeah. What were those 2 books?
The Uncut Stand.
Were they your husband's book?
That would be The Uncut Stand by Stephen King, which I DNF'd back in like 2015. In my defense, I really liked that book until I got to this one chapter that is the worst chapter I've ever read in my life. And King fans have told me that is fair and that I should just read the book again and skip the chapter because it never comes back. Have you read The Stand, either of you?
I have not. I have not read a single Stephen King book. Horror has never been my genre. Just never been into Stephen King.
Yeah, I'm not a horror person either, which is maybe why that was a bold choice.
Yeah.
But I did it. So yeah, that was the one.
Yeah, that's a great sell though, of saying this is like the one of the 2 books that Bookborn couldn't even finish. That's a good. I don't know. I'm interested, but I probably won't like it. But it's at least a good. It's one of those things you don't want to watch, or like watching a bad movie, like The Room. It's you like it because it's so bad. Is it one of those, or was it just a genuinely horrible chapter?
It's just it was disturbing graphic content, I guess I should say. That's like the only thing that I would DNF a book for. It's graphic content. So that's why. I wouldn't say it was bad in the terms of like, oh, this is badly written or anything, because I really was enjoying the book until then. It was so graphic that I thought if it even comes up again, I'm not interested in reading this. And so that's why I quit.
Yeah, that kind of reminds me of it's kind of an odd thing. I DNF'd a book, a whole series based on the very first chapter. Have you read Prince of Thorns by Mark Lawrence?
I shall never. My husband was like, you can never read this book.
Oh.
Yeah, I read the first. I bought the whole series because I liked Mark Lawrence. I loved his Red Sister trilogy, and I read the first chapter of Prince of Thorns and just put it down. Said, nope, not going to continue on with this series. I just couldn't get through it.
Was it the protagonist was genuinely terrible?
Oh, it's really hard to follow a series when you want the main character to die immediately. Okay. Like I'm hoping it trips and gets struck by lightning in the next chapter.
And you're saying you were warned not to read this? Like your husband told you, yeah, no, this is not for you.
He said you will never even make it through a paragraph of this novel. And so I will never pick that up. I'd be right with you.
Do you focus on a certain, in fantasy category, do you like YA more? Do you like a certain type of...
No, I haven't read a YA book in like a decade. I'm all strict adult fantasy, but I do have a pulse on the graphicness of things. There's a few things for me that I personally don't like, and so I'll try to get a pulse on that, or just skip sections if I know it's going to be a limited part of the novel.
Because I know you do love Joe Abercrombie, right? Didn't you just finish a book that you loved? Which book was that?
Trouble with Peace. Yeah.
Trouble with Peace.
Favorite book of the year so far. Yeah, so Joe Abercrombie was a hard sell for me because I knew he had graphic sex scenes. The only reason Joe gets a pass, I see that you guys have read Blade Itself and Before They Are Hanged, maybe, based on your shelf.
I'm currently working on the third book right now.
Okay. And hold on, this is Richard's shelf. Don't assume I've read half these books. So this is Richard's domain. I read one of those over there. But yeah, so with Blade Itself, you also read Blade Itself?
Yeah, I've read 9 of the 10 first law books. So I only have one last one to read. But Joe's scenes are hilarious. They're not really meant to be graphic in the way we normally think of graphicness. They're just hilarious. And I also skim read that stuff because I don't find it very important to the overall plot. But Joe, it's because he's so funny. Okay. So I find his graphicness doesn't get to me in the same way other graphicness can because of the humor and kind of, the levity he brings into it. I don't know if you've noticed that reading him.
I have, because I'm not the biggest fan of grimdark series in and of itself.
Me neither.
Like, for the most part, Game of Thrones just actually doesn't really interest me that much. It's not really my cup of tea. But there have been a couple series that I'm getting slowly pulled into it. Joe Abercrombie's definitely one of them. The Black Tongue Thief was also it's supposed to be grimdark, but it's actually pretty darn funny.
I've read that one.
The lens. Yeah, it's a funny book because it's through the certain character's lens. And so he makes it funny, but it's a pretty dark world.
Yeah, I mean, I've found that I thought that I might like grimdark because I liked Abercrombie so much, and I've discovered I don't like grimdark, I just like Abercrombie. So that's kind of my current stance on the matter. Maybe I'll be convinced.
Awesome.
By the way, what was that second book that you DNF'd in the last 15 years?
It was an indie book, so I'm sure a lot of people haven't heard of it. It was Where Loyalties Lie by Rob Hayes. Now, I always like to do the caveat is that I've read Rob Hayes' other books and loved them, but there was an extremely graphic, brutal scene in Where Loyalties Lie, and it was just, like, I could not go on because of that. So it's not like a moral or judgment on the book itself and the writing, but it was too graphic for me. Yeah.
Okay. That brings us perfectly into this, where you said, so that's an indie book. And there's lots of self-published books that do really well because of BookTube and because of your channel. I'm sure when you review something, it really impacts if people read a book or not. Do you ever feel an obligation if there's a self-published book you hate, like maybe you might not review that, or if there's something that you just don't like, you just won't mention it because of your platform?
It's really tough because I think you should be honest, and if you always avoid a bad rating, then that there's some lack of honesty there. But I do not want to sink a book. So there has been a book. Wasn't even give it a bad rating. It was only like a 3-star, but I didn't post a review on it because it was a really new indie book and I didn't want to post a 3-star review because it felt like, maybe not fair. But I try to be pretty careful at the indie books I pick up that I know I'm probably going to already enjoy them. Or with SPFBO, I am brutally honest. Like, my SPFBO scores are reflective of how I felt about the books because that's my job as a judge. And luckily there are other people reviewing those books to counteract perhaps if I give a poor review to one of them.
Sure. There's definitely a different context with they're being kind of submitted that you're supposed to actually grade it, and they're offering. They're offering to be critiqued, where actually a Patreon of ours had a question that kind of falls in line with similar to this. Orcish Dad, he wanted to ask you, were there any books that you read while judging for the SPFBO that you feel you didn't get the recognition they deserved? And if so, why do you think that was?
Weirdly enough, I feel like Song for the Void, which is silly because it got 3rd place, but like it annoyed me that it got 3rd place because I just liked it so much. I am trying to champion that book. I just felt like it was so well done and it got like pushed to 3rd. I was the only person who said it was my favorite of the batch, which I also felt was strange. So I just feel like a lot of people are talking about the top two, and I just don't hear a lot of people talking for that one. And I really, really liked it. And so, yeah, I guess that's my one from this year that I would champion.
I must say, just about that Patreon question, we did mention to our patrons that you were coming on. Every single person was like, "Oh, my favorite booktuber's coming on," and we're like, "What are you doing in our Patreon? What do you?" Every single person, it was horrible. It was a terrible time for us.
We've cultivated a great group of people that love to roast us.
But they're being honest. Like they say, it goes like they listed. It was like it was you, then Mike's book reviews. We weren't even on their list. So just want to say they were very excited about this episode.
Well, that's
and
very
nice. Going off the SPFBO, how did you become a judge in the first place? How'd that all work?
Mark reached out to me and asked if I wanted to be a judge.
Also, that's awesome.
So that's how it happened.
Wow.
But I mean, he kind of knew about me. My husband was in the competition in SPFBO 6, and I had emailed him a while back, just like, oh, if you ever need someone to get involved, and that was like a couple years. And then he had contacted me last year and said, well, we need a judge. Do you want to do it? So I said, yes.
This is your first year, right?
This is my second year.
Do I have that one?
No, second.
Second year. Okay. And then you weren't, because Sword of Kagan was 2019 or 2020? Were you there when Sword of Kagan was in the running?
No. I was not there when Sword of Kagan was in the running, which is good because then the next year my husband's was in the running, which would have been really weird, and I wouldn't have been able to rate that. I think actually maybe was he the year after Sword of Kagan? Maybe not. There might have been one in between. I don't know the order of them all. I've read them all, though. I've read all the winners.
Awesome.
Where Loyalties Lie is the DNF because it was a winner. Anyway, the end.
Awesome. I think the competition's so awesome because we wouldn't have read that book otherwise. Like how would that book have been as popular as it is? I think it does tremendous things for. And how does it work exactly? Where you're one of 10 groups of judges, is that correct?
Yes. And we all pick a finalist. So there's 300 books. We all get 30 books. We pick a finalist from the 30 books, and then we all have to review all 10 of the finalists.
How's that deadline look? So are you ever crunched for, you have to read a lot of books by this certain time?
Yep. It's a deadline. And it is really hard. In fact, I was like, last year, I was like, I don't know if I can do this again. But then it was so fun. And I was like, okay, I can do it. You just got to push through.
Right. Does that ever hurt? Because, you have to read a lot of stuff for content and enjoyability or whatever. So adding that in is just a third category of that I understood the you said there. It came across. So
that's all I needed to say. Kind of my whole feeling was
I'll be honest. It's been quite nice recently. We've been doing videos on books that I have already read that it's just Austin has to catch up.
Yeah.
And so he's reading it while I get to sit back and kind of relax and slowly read my other books. So it's going to come to a point where I'm actually going to have to start reading at a breakneck.
You're going to have to start reading and you have a BookTube?
I know. Oh, terrible.
We had this dynamic where he's read way more fantasy sci-fi books and I'm kind of playing catch up. And that's what we do here. And it's worked very differently because most booktubers it's one person. And so we kind of have to figure out different content strategies with two people. Can you give us an insight in talking about the pros and cons of booktube? As you doing it alone, what has been a more enjoyable part of this whole experience? And then what's been something that you go, this I'd rather not?
People are the best part of BookTube. Meeting people. I don't know. Do you guys feel that way? I've made some pretty close friends doing BookTube that I chat with like about regular life stuff on the daily, which has been really great. I love the community. So that's for sure the best part. The worst part is the grind. So I don't know if you guys feel that, just like, oh gosh, I got to put something out every week. Whether I'm busy or whether I want to or whether I have an idea floating around in my head. Because some weeks it's just like, I do not have an idea in my head. It's blank.
Oh, please. Okay. I put this in my notes. I promise you I put this in my notes. Okay, let's talk about content. a Bookborn. How do you come up with ideas? How? Please help. Like that's like actually how do you? Because we have a board off the side behind Richard, where we have all the ideas listed. They're kind of rough. Some of them are good, but what do you do to come up with something? Do you open up a dictionary, do the Mr. Beast method of picking a word, or how do you do it?
I couldn't imagine someone who's more different than me than Mr. Beast. So whatever he does, I probably do the opposite of that. But I do have the notes app in my phone is where I keep a running list. Right now, I hate every idea on that running list. So I don't really know how useful the list is. Where do I get my ideas? A lot of times it's like someone says something happens. Can't fall asleep for 3 hours at night, and so finally an idea pops into my head that I hopefully remember the next morning. I never know where it's gonna come from, to be honest.
Yeah, Rich, you're our idea guy usually.
Oh, then you tell me.
Yeah,
give me hints. Please help.
All right, Rich, your turn.
I'll be honest. I just kind of look around at stuff and then go, "What if?" That, but what if books? And then ideas pop into my head.
Been there.
Yeah, that's usually how it goes.
That's for the most part.
Yeah.
But actually, a Patreon talk wanted to also ask you, it's kind of in the same vein that Lucas was thinking about how with most booktubers falling back into what they would consider standardized content, like book hauls, book reviews, and skits. How are you able to constantly come up with more thought-provoking topics about the industry to discuss for your channel? Which I think you've kind of gone over right now, but I'm interested because you do take a different spin with your channel than I would say most BookTube channels.
Yeah, I think for me, it's just like I have to be interested in what I'm talking about to do it, and book hauls and that sort of like TBR thing just doesn't interest me. I just can't work myself up to be interested by it. And so I'm never going to be able to sit in front of a camera and talk about something that I have just zero interest in. But also I don't tend to haul. I don't buy a lot of books because I read what I buy. I don't put them on my bookshelf till they're read. And I'm like a mood reader. So what TBR? I would never match a TBR. Like there's just no way. So I write I write scripts or I film what I'm interested in. And most of the YouTubers I followed before becoming a booktuber were video essayists and not necessarily in the book space. And so that's who I wanted to emulate because that's the kind of content that interests me.
So you won't lean in toward, hey, if this is going to get more views or versus what you want to do?
I mean, this is the conversation because my husband's always like, look, you complain all the time that your channel isn't growing the way you want it to. But then you refuse to do things that could get you guaranteed views. Like we seriously have this conversation like once a month. He's like, just film a TBR video, film a haul. And I'm like, no.
Read some manga. Do a manga review.
That's the way to do it. You do have these, your videos are obviously very well prepared. You have this style of, how long does it typically take you per video to have all the notes set up and ready to go?
I mean, it really depends how research heavy it is. So a recent video, like my propaganda video, which took a lot of research, that's probably like 30 to 40 hours between editing, research, writing, and producing. Something that's just a book review or doesn't require a lot of research, that's going to be a lot less, right? Maybe 10 to 15. If I'm really lucky, 5 to 8. But yeah, the research heavy videos, that's why I tend to, if anyone's following my content, they might realize what I call a high effort video followed by a low effort video. So I usually do 1 week on, 1 week off, so that I have extra time for those high effort videos.
That makes sense. And so when you do you have a different style going into a more video essay, you're ready, this one's prepped versus a book review? How do you look at those two differently?
Yeah, so I do write scripts for all of them because I just like to organize my thoughts. I mean, I don't read the script, but I have to write something out beforehand to know like where I want my thoughts to be. But yeah, a book review, it's going to be a lot. I can just sit down in a single sitting and usually get it out and just do a few revisions, film. Very little editing usually goes into a book review. There's not a lot of stuff. So it's just simpler. Whereas one of my video essays, you never really know where they're going to end up. like the research discovery phase can go a lot of directions. And so I never know how long. And there's some videos where I'm like, I have to stop researching. Like if I am going to make a video that comes out Wednesday, like I have to just cut the cord. Like I can't spend this much time like digging into research articles and reading like 45 pages. Like I think that was my the video on adaptations. I had found this like dissertation on adaptations that was like 120 pages, and I was like on page 60, and I was like, this is insane. I have to stop. Like I have to just I have to just put this out, and I can read this on my own later. So that's the tough thing, is the timeline.
How does it feel when you do all this research? For example, your spoiler video, your spoiler talking about why spoilers may not matter.
Yeah, that's why we're in a feud. I remember it.
And then some random booktubers come out just for pure views and content, put you in a thumbnail and go, you're wrong, Bookborn.
Do you know how much research came into our rebuttal? Or at least I had one thought that I wanted to rebut that entire article. It was quite literally like 5 minutes.
Oh, I think we were eating and we went, oh, what about that?
That's a significant flaw. And then that's a video.
Yeah, we have problems.
I actually love it. I love getting a response because then it's like, well, at least someone thought about it. Like maybe I didn't get as many views as I hoped, but someone thought about it. Although I do think that is definitely in like the top 10 misunderstood videos that I've ever produced. People seem to think I love spoilers. And I'm like, if you watch till the end, I am like a very spoiler phobic person. I just like forcing people to think differently about things. It's not necessarily accepting that spoilers are okay. It's more about forcing you to confront something that is different than your gut instinct.
I remember in that video you were even saying, I think you talked about showing Star Wars to your kid at the appropriate age so he wasn't spoiled. Were you mentioning that? Like you're so concerned for spoilers, you didn't want him to be spoiled.
Yes, correct. He needed to have the experience I wanted him to have.
Yes, and that's why I was gonna bring up family at the end because it's like the least important thing. But since we're talking about it, I wanted this. This was my most exciting question of the night. Okay.
Okay.
I have this written out. It was: is there something from BookTube that has taught you something about parenting? Rich, was that a good question? Give me something. Was no?
It's going to depend on the answer.
Okay, let's see. I thought it was thought provoking. It was relatable. It was okay.
Do either of you guys have kids?
No.
Oh no. Okay. We are. Yeah.
Are you guys babies?
How old do you think we are? We're the same age.
You're the same age.
Yes.
Yeah.
Doesn't look it. I know he's got the.
I'm gonna guess 26.
25, yeah.
Right on.
Dude, I nailed it. Okay, well, how old do you think I am?
I think I know, so it's not. You have to guess that.
Oh, I had to guess.
Yes, because I saw your episode on Fantasy Files. Was it? I was watching with it's Fantasy Files, correct? They were talking about Titanic. It was funny.
Oh, and we came up. We found out we had the same birthday, right?
Yes, and that's where I found out your age. So you got to answer, Rich.
29?
No, I'm 33.
Dang.
Rich,
I'm only 4 years old.
You guys are babies. That's fine.
We are men.
Need you
what are
guys.
you talking
We need
about?
the youths
Stop it.
on BookTube. Why us old people?
I go to Home Depot. I don't know what you're talking about.
What are you talking about? I just fixed the air conditioning and washer this past weekend.
Oh, listen, I go to Home Depot just to smell the driftwood and see my people, my brethren. I don't know.
I don't think there's driftwood at Home Depot, but
hey, I've never seen a Home Depot in real life.
Never gone into Home Depot.
But lumber is usually what we call it at the Home Depot.
That's right.
She's more of a man than you are, and ever will be.
Yeah, that's right. So that went off the amazing question I had based on BookTube and parenting.
Your question was amazing.
Thank you.
Is it BookTube? What about a book I wouldn't have read probably if it weren't for BookTube? Which I just recently read A View from the Cheap Seats by Neil Gaiman, which is a collection of his nonfiction essays. And Leanna from Leanna's Library gave me that book. Awesome. And Neil Gaiman, all of his thoughts on, how children read and what you should let children read, I think will have a profound impact on me. He was so eloquent about the way he talked about kids discovering literature and how just allowing them to read whatever they want, whether it is dumb and stupid and we don't consider it literature, or whether it's great or too old for them, and letting kids like discover that as their own journey, and how that affected him has definitely made me feel like I'm going to be, just not like I'm going to give them anything to read, but just allow them to explore more and not get so worked up on what they're choosing to read.
That's great.
Is there a strategy that you have with your kid that you're gonna try and get them to actually like reading?
Oh, my kids love to read.
Can come across as pretty hard. I'm sorry, say again.
My kids love to read. I don't know if I'm lucky or what. I have 2 kids. Mostly my 8-year-old. He is an insane, he reads hours a day. It is the best thing of my life. I'm just so grateful that
that's awesome.
He is the person who came out. My daughter does like to read. She's just not as motivated to learn to read. My son learned to read at 4. He was so self-motivated. He is just a huge reader. And so at least I have one. Whether or not my daughter comes around, I have one. But I think if you love to read, if you guys ever want kids someday, if you love to read, your kids like to do what you like to do. And if you have a culture of reading, you guys have tons of books on your bookshelves. That's a big step towards that.
Definitely. And I've noticed this pattern too, because our other friend that we collab with, Bryce from Shelf Centered, shout out Bryce, his kid is 12 or 11 and also loves reading. Loves it. And it's hard when you ask a random person, does your kid read? Usually it's no, but because you love it so much, what your parents do just kind of transforms what your kids do because they see books.
It's hard, I would imagine, for a parent who doesn't read a lot, who wants their kid to read, to actually get them to read.
Yeah, lead by example type of situation.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's actually my first piece of advice. When people are like, oh, how do you get your kid to love to read so much? He's crazy. And I'm like, you need to start reading. That's not usually the advice they want to hear, but I'm like, anything. It does not have to be a highfalutin book. Go back and read your favorite middle grade book. Who cares? Go read a comic book. But your kids are going to emulate what they see you doing. And so the first step is you need to find something you like to read.
Yeah. I know that's on my end, is my mother loves to read. And so the reason why I grew up reading so much was because of her. She would always read to me, and I would always see her reading. That was her pastime, is reading instead of watching TV for the most part. So,
absolutely.
Well, she did watch Star Trek. She'll watch Star Trek and then she reads. And so
Star Trek is
what do I
essential
do?
Viewing, so.
Oh, exactly. I don't think there's any better TV show to learn moral lessons from than Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Okay, good. I was going to ask if we're talking about Next Gen, because I was also raised on Next Gen, so.
Oh, yeah. No, oh, God. That was the only excuse that my mother would allow me to stay up past my bedtime, was that if I watched Next Generation with her.
Oh,
if I wasn't going to watch Next Generation, I had to go to bed.
Nice.
Nice.
You showed me clips from it, and I have to watch it. I can't believe.
I know. Yeah. I can't believe you haven't seen it.
Yeah, every clip you show me is great. But with reading and with you having a BookTube channel, to narrow this back into the pros and cons, how has the time commitment been? How do you juggle that in your life?
Sucks. I don't know. I don't. It's not a balance.
Your best answers are when you just go, "Yep, sucks."
It's really hard, and especially because summer just started for my kids, and so my video, the essays are just going to be few and far between this summer because the time just isn't there. This is a hobby. I only get to do this after usually my kids go to bed, so it's sucked up a ton of just my leisure time in general.
Right.
Which is fine. It's been harder too because I started playing Tears of the Kingdom, and so that's also been an issue personally for me that I need to overcome.
Yeah, I feel the same thing. Tears of the Kingdom has eaten quite a bit of reading time for me.
Oh, I'm so glad. My husband's so tired of me meeting people who played Tears of the Kingdom because then I talk to them about it for 40 minutes. Isn't it just the best?
I think it has to be. It's either my favorite game ever or at the very least top 3.
It is mind-blowing.
I can't believe they took Breath of the Wild, which was already a fantastic, great game, and they made it look like a tech demo. Tears of the Kingdom is everything that the first game should have been.
I have fun just watching you play the game. That's how fun the game is.
I absolutely love how when you think you have an original thought in the game, that you go, oh, I'm being real creative, and then you look online and you see everyone else kind of had the same thought. So, Bookborn, I don't know. When you first logged into the game, when you're on like the Sky Island, did you just build a gigantic bridge out of logs to accomplish your goal, like 12 logs glued together, and then that's how you beat things?
Look, so I'm trained as a civil engineer.
Oh.
So I have probably played like 40 hours of this game and have done nothing but sit there and build garbage. Like, that's all I do. So yes, I have built everything from the sturdiest thing you can imagine to the most horrible, would not pass code, but it does what I need it to personally do. Anything you could possibly imagine. This game is like crack for me personally.
Are you a fan of Minecraft by chance then?
So we have not gone into Minecraft, and it's just because I personally, like, every kid is into Minecraft, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't want to get into an online game. Then I feel like it sucks more of your time if you have to like deal with other people.
Oh, it's a trap. I love the game so much. I had to quit.
That's the initial thought. Yeah. But for some reason, Tears of the Kingdom is already consumed. Like 50, 60 hours.
There's also a conversation to be had about video games now being adapted into, well, not just books, but being adapted, where you had Last of Us most recently. Do you think...
I think God of War is also getting adapted. I think there was some news passing on there.
Yeah, I think The Rock is going to play Kratos. That's a rumor right now. Now, Bookborn.
Maybe.
What would you say? Any video game right now, Tears of the Kingdom being one of them, so let's say that's off the table. What do you really want to see adapted from the video game genre?
I mean, I'm going to have to go with Dragon Age, because Dragon Age has novels, and I've read a few of them. I really loved Dragon Age Inquisition. And I feel like that has there's so much lore there, and like we're trying to do more fantasy. Why not do a Dragon Age movie? That's my vote, to be honest.
Rich, do you concur, or do you want?
I haven't played the game.
I was hoping you have, because I haven't. Yeah. I have nothing to contribute to this conversation.
Sorry,
just like Tears of the Kingdom.
I am. They've been adapted for. We had the original Tomb Raiders. I grew up playing Tomb Raider with my dad, so that was kind of exciting when that one came out. I think they can be good, although I guess everyone hated the Angelina Jolie Tomb Raider adaptation. My dad and I personally loved it, so maybe my expectations.
I thought
are
it was fun.
It's fun, yeah.
Yeah, no, I thought it was more fun than the new one that came out 2016, 2017.
I really did not like that movie.
Yeah, it's such
because
a
that's the thing,
movie.
Right? If you're going to adapt a video game, there needs to be a lightheartedness to it. There has to be some sort of joy, because ultimately video games
joy.
Well, and I'm just saying, I feel like the other one, it took to literally, there were times in that 2016 adaptation where it looked like a cutscene from a video game, and that's almost, it's not catching the vibe, I think, of successful adaptations, which is to take the heart of something and adapt it for its new medium, which is, anyway, that's a whole nother discussion, I guess.
Oh no, I'm agreeing with you on that, mainly because I think that applies to almost all adaptations.
Yes.
The worst adaptations are where they're trying to just do the same feel in the same setting, but just worse. Where the best adaptations take a cool idea and put it in a different setting. Right. I think my favorite example is always Seven Samurai and then The Magnificent Seven. Magnificent Seven is a great adaptation because you take an idea from an original story and apply that to a different setting and see how it makes minor changes. Makes a great adaptation. You look at
another great adaptation, Wheel of Time Season 1.
You shut your mouth.
So I could say that because I've read Eye of the World, but I have not seen Wheel of Time Season 1. So I am an observing party I know that this was mentioned before we got on the pod here, but Rich you could go ahead. The first video you saw of hers, right?
Yeah, no, the first, for you guys watching, the first video I ever saw of Bookborn's was her breakdown of why season 1 of The Wheel of Time sucks. And
actually, the word I used was disappointing.
Disappointing, sucks, worst season ever of television. Yes.
No, Rings of Power was for sure worse.
Oh, agreed.
That is objective.
I have not seen Wheel of Time season 1, but I guarantee you that's true. That was real bad.
Because at least, and this is what I keep saying, at least Wheel of Time didn't bore me to where I felt like I've been watching this show for 10 hours. It says it's been an hour, but I've been here personally, emotionally for 10 hours during this single episode.
Oh my goodness.
We felt the same way. We only watched the first 2 episodes. And we both looked at each other, do you want to continue? And we were like, nope. And then we decided not to.
That goes back to the conversation about doing things for content. We were like, okay, we got to watch the show. We're going to cover content on it. And then we started watching it, said no, instead we're going to talk to Silmarillion. And then had you... that's where we went off.
Oh, God. I'm so glad I read the Silmarillion before watching Rings of Power.
I'm also glad I read the Silmarillion right before as well. And what's so funny is I think it was after episode 6 and I was just like, I can't do this anymore. So I wrote on my community tab and I was like, what do you guys think if I just stop talking about every episode and I will just do like a final thoughts video? Like, how do you feel? And like 80% of my viewers were like, no, please do an episode by episode. And I was like, oh my gosh. And so
what'd you end up doing?
I did it because it was like, if it was even close, if it was like 50-50, I would not have done it. But it was like overwhelmingly, people were like, no, I want your breakdown of how it's different than the Silmarillion because I haven't read it and I want to know. And so I suffered through it. And then I was like, I am not watching another Rings of Power episode. I am not even tuning in to season 2. You could not pay me.
Here.
But that is a fascinating conversation to have where you have a big enough audience where it matters. For us, if our 50 people are going, watch this, we'll just go, no.
Well, it wasn't even, a lot of people didn't even watch him. But it was like, there's people who have been, like the people who respond to that are the people who are usually the people supporting me the most. And so I want to make content that they want. Anyway, it was... The long story short, I'm not going to force myself to finish Wheel of Time. I'm done. So if I go to season 2 and I'm like, I hate my life, I'm just going to stop, even if it's like episode 2.
What if there's a poll that's like 90% of your audience wants you to
I'm not doing a poll.
We'll do a poll.
This is a poll of one.
It's a poll of me. We'll put a poll on our channel. How many of you guys want Bookborn to do an episode by episode break?
No.
Comment
poll
below,
of
right?
one, poll of me. Do I want to do it? No. End of story.
Actually, one of the most mind-boggling pieces of news that I got from season 2 is how the showrunner was saying how season 3 will be a lot closer to the books. And hearing that going, wait a minute, season 2 isn't even out yet. How do you get further? How do you deviate for 2 seasons? I just don't understand that you get that feedback and go, yeah, we need to go further away from the books. That's a great idea.
This does bring up, it loops back again into, it's so much easier if you don't like a show that's just huge. It's so much easier to just say your dislike for it or your love for it. But then there's that little part of me when there's not to be redundant about this, but we'll get sent books, we'll get sent self-published books. If we read it, there will be times where Rich and we won't go out there and just say, you might hate something as much as you hate Wheel of Time season 1, but the fact that someone has like 100 reviews on Goodreads, you'll use that judgment differently, right, Rich? Or what do you think about that?
In general, but I also just don't hate poor quality. I may not like, I don't think this is that well done, but I don't hate that. I hate when something like could have been done well and they have the money, the resources, and they ruin something.
Good point.
That's worse. To take something great and ruin it is way worse than creating something brand new and it's just not being the best quality.
That's a great distinction. Bookborn, what do you think about that?
100% agree. And also I find that I have very few books that I really hate. Like my 1 stars, they're pretty rare. Like to get me to really hate a book, you have to do something pretty egregious. And so I totally agree with that. Like, especially self-published, like people are putting their heart out and you can tell how much they're working in it. I'm never going to hate that. Like I might not like it. I might not think it's well done, but I'm never going to feel like a visceral hatred towards it. Yeah, you're going to spend, what, Rings of Power ended up spending $900 million on that first season. Where?
Oh, God.
I need a line by line. I need a receipt. I want to know, you know?
The fact that the costumes weren't even that great. Like, I would have expected, like, fantastic costumes, CGI, like, out the wazoo. It didn't even look that good other than a couple screenshots. Like, a couple...
I thought some of the stuff
individual
looked good.
frames.
I think they had some pretty stunning landscape views, like, cinematically, when they were moving. But
I think that was cool, but the actual movement of, like, the CGI movement and characters and the actual action scenes, I didn't think looked spectacular.
I realize that you've only seen 2 episodes, so you never saw Galadriel on a horse.
Oh, was that the best scene of the series?
That is the scene. After we're done, I just need you to go Google that part. You know, see if it changes your mind.
Okay.
I'll have to take a look.
This is
Maybe
sarcasm.
that will get me to watch the rest of the show.
You'll be so grateful you didn't finish after watching it, but you should at least go watch the scene.
Do you do the same with books where you rate shows and movies? Do you have the same kind of system?
No, because I only talk about adaptations on my channel. I don't talk about anything else. And so far, it's other than Andor, it's been like I hate everything. So, yeah.
Okay.
You're right with us because most stuff we've watched recently it's just not been good.
I mean, I will say I liked The Last of Us. I just never played the video game, so I didn't really have like I wasn't going to cover that. I did really enjoy it. You know, I enjoyed Stranger Things. That's not an adaptation, so I'm not going to cover it. Yeah. I only covered Andor because I felt so strongly and was so sad that no one's watching that TV show.
I think we've been burned by Disney Star Wars
wait.
so much.
Have you guys stop everything. Have you guys not watched Andor?
No.
Okay, stop it right now. Okay, here. Never mind. Don't go and
That's
watch
been To Ramble, everybody. We'll see you next episode.
No. Stop right now. Go watch. No, here's what you have to understand. I said I was never going to watch a Star Wars TV show again after Obi-Wan. Because
that's what we said.
It was the worst thing I've ever experienced in my entire life.
Oh my God, it was terrible.
And
I feel so validated.
I want to cry when I think of how bad that show was. But so if like 4 episodes of Andor were out, I was not watching it because I refused. And I had so many people messaging me that I had to watch Andor that I was like, I will give this 1 episode. And guys, I feel fanatical about Andor. It is so good. It is, you have to watch it. I will give you back somehow your time. I'll make a deal with the Cosmos to give you back your time if you do not like it.
You know what? A recommendation from you, we will watch the first episode.
Especially because we are the exact same Kenobi. We had a video on our channel early on. It was horrible.
It was baffling, like one of the worst television shows I've ever seen. That the writing alone, I had to like actually pause. Like, I don't know which one's worse, that or Rings of Power. I think Kenobi.
Actually, Kenobi might be worse.
Yeah. Oh, I'm in agreement. Well, based on the first 2 episodes of Rings of Power, so I'm in agreement. Yeah.
I still remember the scene where Obi-Wan goes into the Rebels and the Rebels saying something along the lines of, "Oh, we can't help you," and then starts monologuing to themselves and to Obi-Wan, and in 30 seconds goes from "we can't help you" to "all right, we're gonna help you." He talked himself into helping, and it was just this weird monologue. Oh God, it was so weird.
And I love Hayden Christensen, and I love Ewan McGregor, and it sucks so much because I love them, but it's just such a bad show. Oh.
Yeah.
Bookborn, just stay off. We're gonna keep talking. Okay.
Okay, you're right. I'm sorry. I was just they broke so much lore, And
yes,
the little girl, the chase scene.
Oh,
it was so funny.
It was, anyway, I'll go watch your guys' video on it. I have a video on it too. I wonder if we said the same things, but yeah, that's probably some of the worst TV.
It's very bad. Also, it's very early on in our channel. Don't even bother. Trust me, it's not it's a rough one. But I love that you called her little girl, not even Leia. You didn't even give the
just little girl.
Just the girl. Just the guy.
And I do feel sorry for her. I don't want to like poo-poo on a young actress. I think it was just a very poor choice. You always age an actress, a child actress up or actor up. So if you're going to have someone portraying 10 years old, you should have a 12-year-old. She was 8 at the time of filming. Whoa. And so I think that also contributed really poorly because they were writing language that a 10-year-old would use, but she clearly wasn't that old. And I have an 8-year-old. And so it was just like my husband and I just could not, we would like burst out laughing at serious parts because it was so stupid.
But your 8-year-old, does he have a very good vocabulary because of reading so much?
He does, actually. He surprises us a lot with the things he'll say.
That's an exception, though, because the general rule is if you're that young, no. Usually
well, it's not the
vocabulary.
It's not the vocabulary they had the child use. It was the confidence of which it was delivered, I think, or the reactions. Like, she didn't act like even I think a 10-year-old, but she being so little and the way she acted, it just did not come off authentic at all. Because you could say, well, a princess would probably have a good vocabulary, might be more commanding. Like there's some, you can let that slide, but it just wasn't believable in any realm of any universe or galaxy far, far away.
Is this okay with you if I title this Bookborn Trashes 8-year-old kid? Watch now, just whatever we can do for the clicks here.
I mean,
that's what I'm getting at. You notice
it.
You notice how Rich altered your words instead of disappointing. He said, sucked, you hated it, worst thing. It's what we do here.
Did you guys know that I very specifically avoid charged language in my YouTube videos? Did you know? Like I actually, there's a reason I use the word disappointed and not sex.
Okay. Oh, do you plan that out?
I plan it out. Well, I try very, very hard to usually not use inflammatory language. Do you guys know why?
No, why? Why is it?
Because of all the review bombing recently. I think it gives fandoms a really bad reputation, and it's very frustrating to me. And so I hope by using more neutral language that I can try to influence fandoms to be a little bit more reasonable online so that people listen to us. Because the problem is because there's these small subset of fans review bombing and saying all these terrible things, it gives these showrunners the right to claim that all fans who are disappointed by a show are irrelevant or not sane or not fair, when the vast majority of fans have very valid critiques. And so I try to contribute to more neutral language online in hopes that that could influence how our discourse goes, and so we can be taken more seriously.
That's a really interesting. That's a very good point, because I remember seeing the backlash to Rings of Power and seeing articles and the showrunners talk about how like the fandom was just being overly hostile, racist, sexist, and like that's why they're getting low reviews, and that's the people who dislike it, is the sexists and racists out there. Where you look at majority of the YouTube people covering Rings of Power, for the most part, they're going against the lore. That's really it.
And
that's why they don't like
boring's
it.
The other point.
I don't even think, like, for me, it wasn't even against the lore because I knew they couldn't use the lore anyway. They didn't have the right to the Silmarillion. But it was like, at least make an interesting made-up story.
Yeah. For the most part, it's following the lore is a way to get your fans on your side in the beginning. But beyond that, if they did not, you'll still get the audience there if you made it good.
Yep.
Because, I mean, when Lord of the Rings first came out, you had people go and say, hey, it's actually, hey, this is going against the books, this is kind of going against the lore. But ultimately, the Lord of the Rings movies were so good that, you know, the public opinion shifted to that side, and the fans kind of acquiesced.
Oh, yeah.
And it helped fans accept it. It helped fans go, oh, this is good.
Yes.
And you just haven't seen that for Wheel of Time or Rings of Power. There's no shift there yet anyway. But yeah, I to go back what you said previously, it was very frustrating because the same thing happened with Wheel of Time. Like, oh, it's just the Uber fans who couldn't handle any changes. It's just people who are racist. Now, there were a lot of racist people. It's shocking. And so I'm not denying that. But I find that there were so many valid critiques against the show that get ignored because they just can point to the few people who are using really inflammatory language. And it's very frustrating to just feel like you have to yell on the internet to be heard.
Oh my God, I feel so called out from our last episode. Our last episode intro was Rich and I fighting, going, I hate your mom. I hate you, Austin. Like, we had a whole skit going out, and we kind of played into it a little bit. But most of our reviews, we don't say disappointed, we say awful. So we have to. No, we need the views.
I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I'm just explaining why I do it. And here's the thing. You guys will probably be way more successful. The videos that are like Wheel of Time sucked, they did way better than my Wheel of Time video. This is again where like my own stubborn personality comes in, where I just like stubbornly refuse to do something not my way. So it's not a great trait. You definitely look at it more methodically and think and plan it through. Our reviews are more, we have all of our thoughts. And since there's two of us here, you kind of bounce back and forth. It just gets more passionate, and we're just going, yeah, if we really love something.
That is true. I'm not passionate particularly about what I dislike in some book or movie. It's that I'm passionate about my disagreement with Austin.
Yes, that's what it is. It's exactly it.
Even though our ratings for a book may only be like a point difference. Like I rate it a 7. And Austin rates it an 8 out of 10. Mm-hmm. I'll start getting even more and more entrenched into and start using more big inflammatory language. And it's a point difference. It's
the book's not awful, you're awful.
Exactly, yeah.
It just goes into that. And that's where, I
can totally see how having another person would do that. Because I think I would do the same thing.
See, it's just how it works. And this is the most important topic that you're ever going to discuss on any channel ever. Rating systems, okay? I need to ask you specifically about your rating system. Now, I'm sure you're unfamiliar with ours. We are psychopaths. I mean this. Like, our rating system is complex. Like, I think it's kind of simple, but
complex. It's 5 scores average.
It's 5 scores, but every time someone looks at our ratings, like, we will rate something. I kid you not, like a 6.52. Some of our ratings come out to like that. So it may be, may not be the most inviting rating system, but how do you decide for you 1 star, 2 star, 5 stars? What do you do? And and then we'll talk about our messed up way.
I'm interested because a lot of people do have those really intense ratings. And what's so funny is like for how intense I am about like research and how I script my videos and all that stuff, ratings is like pure vibes checks for me. It's like, how do I feel? What does my heart say? That's my rating system. 1 to 5, I'll give half stars, nothing less than a half star. In terms of like, I don't do quarter stars or whatever. And that's it. It's literally vibes. Like people will be like, you loved that book and you gave it a 4.5. And I'll be like, yeah, because there was like 2 chapters I really didn't like. So my heart tells me I can't give it a 5. And then there'll be like a book that I rate 5 stars that technically had weird, dumb stuff in it, but I don't care because my heart told me it should be a 5.
That's the opposite of ours.
That is like, we do not get along on this. Actually, one of our categories is emotional impact.
Yeah, so a quick explanation of how we do it is we have 5 categories going emotional impact, characters, plot, dialogue and prose, and then world building.
/ magic, yeah.
I feel like that's pretty normal. I probably would have guessed all of them. Like I've seen that kind of rating a lot. Like people break it down.
Okay.
Yeah, and so we rate that out of 10. I personally only go to the 0.25. So I don't go to the 100th, but that's what Austin does. But, give something a 6.25, and always keeping in mind that a 5 is an average. 5 is not good. It's not bad. It's just that 5 should be the average. Mm-hmm. And so then all we do is I look through my other scores and say, was I more emotionally invested in this book than, let's say, a book I rated previously? And that helps me zero in where I would put the book. Like, I put it in between Red Rising and Eye of the World, something like that.
And now, based on what Rich just said there, Bookborn, would you think he is the more critical one or less between us two? Who would you think is more critical?
I think he's more critical than you are.
Yep, correct. That is.
It's very obvious.
Yeah. Very obvious. You could hear the pretentiousness in his voice.
No, I don't think it's pretension. I think it actually had more to do with the idea that you said that he has read more fantasy and sci-fi than you have before this talk, and how you're catching up with that. And I feel like I have gotten more critical the more I've read. So that was my guess.
Also, you have to listen. This is our channel. You can use provocative words like pretentious. Don't be afraid, okay? It's To Ramble. Use all those dirty words.
I'm sort of pretentious sometimes, so I definitely want to be careful about calling someone else pretentious. It's like the kettle calling the pot black,
Yeah.
See, that's the nice thing is I call myself pretentious, and so I'm free to call whoever else I think pretentious because I'm including myself in it. I know who I am.
That's right.
The thing that I have a hard time with that is like, so there are authors I can think of that are weaker in world building, but I love everything else about it, or authors that are weaker in prose and I love everything else. So does that mean that those books can't ever get a perfect rating from you?
Yeah, in general, there's several books where I feel bad because the score feels lower than I want it to be.
That's what I'm saying. Vibe check. You do it from your heart.
Well, Bookborn, here's the thing. In our defense, are you okay? I'm getting passionate. Let's go. So the dream is when we have a website with the To Ramble rating system, the Rambler rating. We're gonna TM it.
I'm trying to learn how to code to actually get this done. But we can't afford to hire a website developer.
Yeah, are you a coder? You know anybody? Just let us know, please. We need contact.
I mean, I did work. I can code. My husband's a software engineer, but we're too busy with our stuff, so we can't help you. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
Dang.
It's not hard to learn, though. There's like a lot of free.
Yeah, it's just slow. I'm going on Udemy courses. I'm learning Next.js and Tailwind and all that.
You got it.
Eventually.
Yeah, well, we'll get it up one day, and when it does, the dream is, so in the categories, if you're more a vibe person, when you rate a book, you'd look at all the emotional impact category. So we're going to have it so each category is kind of broken down to where you can go find a book like, oh, where's the world building 10 out of 10? Where's the prose perfect? Where's this perfect?
But the problem is it's subjective. Because your idea of good prose or good world building may be very different from my ideas of those things.
That's all ratings.
Well, that's the thing. You're trying to take a subjective idea and add a... You're trying to put objectivity into it, but it's a losing game. There will never be objectivity.
But we're going to sell you on this.
You're trying to put subjective feelings into an objective framework. That's what ultimately you're trying to do.
Bookborn, hear me out. When you read so many books in your year, you read so many books.
You don't know that. Look back, you don't know how much I read. I never tell anyone my number. All right. I maybe only read 10 books a year.
More than me still. Okay, you read more books than me in a year.
I'm just kidding. And then I do. I feel like I read a lot. I just don't read as much as other people on this dumb platform.
Why? Our dumb platforms. So let's say you go back 2018, there's a book you read. You only read it once, and you look back, and you're like, man, what'd I think of that book? Well, with the Rambler rating system, you could look at the category breakdown and be like, oh, I love that aspect more. That's why I like this book. And maybe your notes would help, and you go, okay, I really like the world, but I didn't like the characters as much. And then your memory will start rejogging. And finds after
But, I just remember. Like, if I go back and look at a book, I'll remember what I liked and disliked about it.
flaunting your better memory.
Okay, you're perfect. We're dumb.
No, I'm not saying I won't remember details, but I remember the big picture. Like, I liked characters, or I liked world building, or it had emotional impact. Like, those are very big picture things I could remember, even if I didn't remember the details.
But don't you ever get someone that comes up to you and goes, "Hey, which Wheel of Time book is better? The fourth or the second book?" And you want to know exactly how much better. That's not fair,
because I read those in like a 6-month period, and for all I know, it's like one book.
And that's my point.
The Rambler rating system.
but
you can go and look.
If I was rating books at the time I read Wheel of Time, because I only have them on my Excel document, and I wasn't rating books because I wasn't on anything, but like my rating would just tell me. So like if a book was a 3-star versus 4-star, I'd be like, okay, I liked book 4 better.
What if they're both 4-star?
But what if one aspect had a certain aspect was better in that story, and you want to zero in, like, hey, what exactly about this book really pushed it above the rest? You want to zero in, like, oh man, book 4, book 7, and book 13 really had the best world building of the series, and you can articulate exactly why that one book is better than the rest.
There's a reason this pod works. Nobody else agrees with us, but
I'm not disagreeing. I'm not disagreeing. I am simply challenging your perceptions. I think it's a very useful system. I'm just saying that the idea of making something objective is just always a losing battle when it comes to art.
Oh yeah, it's not objective.
Like, even within ourselves. So the perfect example is when I told you guys about those. I had 2 books in mind. Sword of Kaigen, yeah. I love that book. It was one of my top 5 books of the year I read it. I gave it a 4.5 because I thought that the chapter at the end shouldn't have been there. And there was some stuff that shouldn't have been there, so I dropped a 0.5 star for it. But then Death's End, which is the 3rd book in the 3-Body trilogy, that book had a bunch of weird stuff in it that I didn't really like. But when I got to the end of the book, it blew my mind so much, so I just didn't even care, and I gave it 5 stars. And technically, I think Sword of Kaigen made less mistakes, but the heart told me that Death's End was 5 stars. So
yeah, and our emotional impact told us that it was.
So the point, like, it was a 5-star book. Okay, so right. I think, like, even if I had broken it down, like, I wouldn't have wanted to give it a lower rating. So that rating system couldn't work for me because I just, like, I can't be objective about it, I guess. But I think it'd be very useful to your followers.
The biggest flaw to our system, and this is what comes across, and it's more a technological problem, like we can't really do this with Excel, or we could, but it would complicate it beyond what we can do, is some books emphasize certain aspects and are more important. There are some books where the characters are not particularly important. Right. It is more of an insert, and you're supposed to look at the plot and kind of a self-insert character. That's why,
like, have you ever given a 10 out of 10 with your system? Because I feel like it'd be almost impossible. I can only think of like one book maybe I would have given a 10 out of 10 with your system.
I did give a 10 out of 10 recently.
To what?
Don't listen to him. He's delusional.
I'm not delusional. Enough. It is perfect. Golden Sun, baby. Golden Sun. What was that? No. What was that reaction? Oh my goodness.
We're allies on this one. Look, Red Rising is really good. I like the series. It's a great series. It's wonderful. Amazing. Perfection.
Oh yeah.
10 out of 10.
Yes, sir.
Lord of the Rings, I think, is a good
Yeah.
Lord of the Rings, this godly book, it changed fantasy forever.
Yes.
Is an industry standard.
Yes.
Red Rising is the same.
I think you can have 2 5 stars. Going back to Bookborn system here, you can have 2 things be amazing.
What are your thoughts?
I need to sign off this chat before we talk about it. I'm just kidding. What I was thinking is, like, though, here's the thing. Like, The Trouble with Peace. Gosh, that was literally 5 stars every page for me. Like, I cannot believe, like, Joe Abercrombie wrote everything, I think, to just write The Trouble with Peace. Such a good book. But The First Law has no world building. It's very low magic. The world building, it's not the point of the book. So, like, I've read this incredible, mind-blowing, 5 out of 5 stars every page. Like, wow, the characters' work is better than it's ever been. But First Law doesn't have a lot of world building, so like it doesn't get 10 out of 10.
Well, that would be the case where with the system, you can organize it so you wouldn't look at the world building category, but for you it would be more emotional impact. Or so your actual rating.
But the rating would not be 10 out of 10.
Right,
but
the total
ultimately,
rating
here's the question. Is the best book that can be written
all of those,
have every single category 10 out of 10? Ultimately, that's I think
we
the question.
We just get apparently Golden Sun,
book?
which don't look at my skeptical face. But
oh my god,
it's perfection. It's so beautiful.
Okay, but I have to ask the question: have you read the Red Rising trilogy and continuation series?
I read 2 Red Risings and DNF'd after that, like the series. I didn't DNF a book, but I read the first 2 and I was like, eh.
You finished Golden Sun and stopped?
Oh, is Golden Sun the second one?
Yeah.
Then even more so, you gave Golden Sun a 10 out of 10? I thought Golden Sun was the third one.
God.
Oh my gosh.
I was gonna say I was actually enjoying your company at one point in this podcast. Like seriously,
Bye.
I was going to walk away and say, you know what? She's a decent, upstanding citizen. That's what I was going to say.
Golden Sun,
Yes.
10 out of 10.
Yes.
Please.
I gave it I really liked it. So here's the thing. I didn't give it a 10. I think I gave it an 8 something in here. I really enjoyed it. I thought very good. I know what he was going for. Really liked it.
Yeah.
Here's the deal.
But it's not the best that ever's been.
It was a soft series DNF. It wasn't that I hated Golden Sun. It was one of those things I was like, well, I'll eventually pick up the 3rd book, and then you just never do. I don't know if you've ever done that. But like, so it wasn't like I was like, I hated Golden Sun. But Golden Sun, I mean, it was fine.
Oh my.
Like a 3.5 out of 5 probably.
Topics?
It's been years since I've read it. But like a 10 out of 10, that book? What did you give? So Lord of the Rings, was Lord of the Rings not even 10 out of 10?
Lord of the Rings is also perfect. It's just, they're for different reasons.
I see Lord of the Rings and Golden Sun on the same platform. I got it. World building prose. Golden Sun's prose.
It's amazing.
10 out of 10.
It's okay.
Now, here's where I disagree with the normal person here. I think I look at this, like using films as an example. I think an animated film and a live action film can both have 10 out of 10s. Where a simple story like Wall-E that doesn't have the aim that No Country for Old Men's going for, or a black and white film versus a colored film, whereas one film literally it doesn't have color, one does. They are going
what
for
you'd be describing is rating things on a different scale, which means it's subjective, which means if this was just a vibe check rating, then I would not be questioning your 10 out of 10 on Golden Sun. But you've just used the last 20 minutes to explain to me your very official rating system.
But hold on, you listen to Richard's explanation of the rating system.
It's the same rating system.
No,
it's
our
rating
check
system.
Golden
It's
Sun
the
at 10 out of
exact
10,
same.
I won't even question it.
No. Here's where the difference goes with the objective. He thinks we're creating objectivity. I know it's subjective. So when I look at prose, when I look at prose for a book and I'm looking at Golden Sun, I'm not looking at it as in, is this more beautiful than Tolkien? I'm looking at Golden Sun going, is this as perfect as it can be for what Pierce Brown's going for? And he does it flawlessly. First person, present tense, gripping, love the lines, and Tolkien's also perfect. That's my rant of the day.
Doesn't it ruin the whole idea of your rating system, which is supposed to be that you can compare if something is world building heavy or not, or prose heavy or not? Because I thought the whole point was that it was more of a simple set standard, so that your ratings might be lower overall, but that it would be set across books.
Well, you completely get it. Exactly.
No, this is where we're different then when it's the rating. So for me, it's still subjective. So when I'm looking at prose, 2 things can be 10 out of 10 with prose. You can have the more descriptive nature of Tolkien, or you could have the more plot-focused, action-heavy, quick-witted lines of Golden Sun does.
It honestly pains me to compare Pierce Brown's Golden Sun to Tolkien's writing. That pains me.
Well, here's the thing.
Tolkien's writing
They're going for different things.
No, it's not even close.
So there needs to be like an asterisk. There needs to be some fine print that your guys' ratings system is not the same.
Apparently, though, we just found out this is a fundamental difference here. I don't see how you can't just compare Tolkien prose to Golden Sun.
Yes, I can. That's exactly what I'm doing.
That's not what I mean. What I mean is they're going for different things. I'm looking at an animated film and I'm going, okay, an animated film aimed toward the more kids audience, looking for that. I'm not judging that like I judge Schindler's List. Schindler's List can be 10 out of 10, and so can Polly.
That the point of your system is that you would be doing that.
No, that's Richard's explanation.
But aren't you guys To Ramble? Isn't this like your combined system? Weren't you just talking to me about a website where this would be the thing?
Bookborn, we're gonna have a long argument after we get off of this. Thanks for ruining our night. Okay,
I'm sorry to create what's like domestic troubles. I'm sorry.
Oh no, we live off of our minor differences. That's what fuels us.
It does, and it's man.
But no, God. Here's the thing: is I was in his shoes over a year ago when Stormlight Archive was the very first big fantasy series I read since I was reading when I was much younger, and so that was my first book back into reading. And I remember giving, when I first read it, Words of Radiance, I think a 10 out of 10.
Deserved.
Since then, I have lowered the score because I've read more. I'm going like, okay, look, with more that you've read, you kind of have to shift your average and figure out what's better.
I mean, and that's an interesting thing.
I think so.
I like to honor my past self because I definitely think there are books that at the time I read them were 5 out of 5 and no longer would be if I had read them today. But I think it's okay to honor your past self. And I was like, yeah, that blew my mind when I read it 5 years ago. And I think that's okay, you know? But yeah, I was saying that Sanderson could probably never get a 10 out of 10 on your system. I guess only half system because we're clearly not on the same page here. Because his
I will say for my system,
never get a 10 out of 10.
Yeah, here's the thing. As time goes on, I adjust less and less. For my kind of rating scale, and I look at kind of a matrix of, so I have a matrix that goes from 10 to 1 that adds in like, hey, what's my emotional impact 10 score? And it has an example book that I rated a 10 in that category, all the way to 1. And so I use that as to dial in my rating. And so as time goes on, that has been getting better and better where I don't have to adjust anymore. That I feel confident to be able to say, okay, this book is in between these two, or this book has I think the same quality of characterization as this other book, and I had to adjust less and less. However, with Wheel of Time, I rated those kind of at an odd time, and so now I'm going through a read through and readjusting my scores on a read.
Yeah, but a reread. See, I never rate a reread, which is one of my things because I feel like I have such a different opinion of things on a reread. If I'm rereading it, I already liked it enough to reread, and things feel so different.
Yeah, it's difficult, but it's something of trying to think of how did this author handle these characters, and have they handled it better than another author or another series. However, with Wheel of Time specifically, the challenge comes from it being such a long series. I think of it as one story. The reason why I don't even consider the slog a thing is because I read the book so quickly, all through basically one sitting. I didn't feel a slog.
I definitely felt a slog, but it felt way less because I also read them back to back. Because before BookTube, I read I would sit down and read series back to back pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So that does feel differently. I feel like if you're not taking breaks.
Yeah, I only felt that like one book was a little slow. I was like, oh, this storyline did not need to be
Twilight.
2 books. Yeah, that was it. Where I was like, this didn't need to be 2 books.
What number is that?
That was the only moment of like slog that I felt.
Okay, because I'm on book 2 now. I'm making my way through.
Or was it book 9? Wait, is that 9 or 10?
I think it.
Winter's Heart is 9, I think, and Crossroads of Twilight is 10.
Yeah, then Gathering Storm is 11. Then
Towers of Midnight, and then
Towers of Midnight, then Memory of Light.
Yeah, because it's a repeat of the previous book from different perspectives, so it feels long. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that one of your favorite series, Wheel of Time?
It's always gonna have a place in my heart. So yes, it was
awesome.
What I read to that was my shift from YA to adult fantasy. It was the first adult fantasy I had read. And I literally like never went back to YA after I read that. I don't know, 14 years ago or something.
Then fair enough, because Red Rising does have that more YA prose kind of style, so I could see I could see how that could not land.
When I just found out very recently how young he was when he wrote that, and it actually made me want to try the series again, because understanding how young he was, it kind of put into context some of the things I struggled with in that series, character-wise and prose-wise. And I think I'd be a little less harsh on it now. If I were to read, I mean, again, I did not hate those books. It was just kind of something I just ended up never getting around to the third book.
Right, just compared to me giving it a 10 out of 10, you're like, what?
Yeah, I still
same thing with me and Poppy War. It's kind of the same thing with, I read Poppy War, and I didn't think it's not a bad book. It's just one of the things I just haven't picked up the second book. Just wasn't interested enough to continue on.
And I will say, I think I figured it out during this conversation what the big difference is. And to finish up this rating with you, Bookborn, but when I'm rating something, I'll also look at the intent of what it's going for.
Oh, I totally understand how you're rating. I'm just saying the way you rate is very differently than the system you described to me. You are much closer to vibe checking than you realize, is all I'm saying.
Here's the thing. I think I judge the intent and vibe check the category by category. Get what I mean? Whereas you,
at that point, just do a vibe score.
But that's what I do too, right? Because that would be like my trouble with Peace. It'd be like, well, it's not crazy world building, but it doesn't matter because the whole point of First Law is that it's a world where magic is leaving and industry is taking over. So in that regard, Abercrombie nails what he's attempting to do. So world building, 5 out of 5. But if I was trying to be objective about it, I would never tell someone to go to the First Law for its world building.
Yeah, that's kind of exactly it.
So that's the difference, I think between your two uses of the rating is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Completely.
Yeah.
So you just got to write that physically on the website is all I'm saying.
Now, here's the thing, is now it makes sense why all the I think you just brought us through a therapy session. I don't think we've ever talked out what we think of our own rating system after 2 years.
Oh, no, we have, and we argued, and then we decided to not bring it up
again.
Yeah,
we probably had like one conversation.
You just needed a mediator. I'm here to mediate the conflict.
Can we talk about other things? It's like, I've been having difficulty in life, like sometimes looking down and just...
We're hoping for a win-win-win situation. Do you guys know that reference?
Yeah. A win-win-win? Where we all win?
Oh, God. I'm trying to remember the movie.
What? Is this a movie?
We can see if people in the comments know that one. A win-win-win-win situation.
Win-win-win.
Well, I would have won for successfully mediating the conflict.
Win-win-win.
Yes. So what we've learned today then is we got a lot to work on, and you just 1 star, 5 star, whatever. It's just that's what we're feeling, and maybe I'm more similar to other ratings than I thought.
No, thing is, we found out that you were more similar to Bookborn here. Your rating system and style is more similar to hers.
Other than giving Golden Sun a 10 out of 10, we're more similar in the way we go about rating things.
It's by the way, your reaction was disgusting. Okay, like that was, I wish, because our camera had to turn off on your end so you can't see us right now, but when you see the video, that was awful. Man, what an enlightening time here. This just worked great.
Well, I wanted to put it off to you as well. Do you have any kind of questions that you wanted to ask us, just kind of through the conversation, or we're kind of new to BookTube itself of what we're feeling? We've been asking you a bunch of questions, wanted to throw it to you.
I did have a few, actually. My biggest question was from a while ago was just, how do you feel like the process of making a video changes with 2 people? Like, do you ever have the problem where like one person's ready to record or like loves an idea and the other person doesn't? Like, you guys, how equal are you guys in that process?
We both have kind of a veto process. If we're both not on board, then it doesn't go through. But in regards to ideas, Yeah.
Like, is it more motivating to have someone else forcing you to do it?
Oh, definitely. Definitely when Austin when he has an idea for a video and I agree to it, but it's not my idea, I'm not as motivated, I'm not as interested, but I agree that it's a good idea. The fact that we now are doing it will get me motivated to actually research and put more time into it. And the fact that he's interested in something means that there's probably something there. And so that I should try and find it.
It also does help that, well, it does two things. One, we are, as much as our arguments are literally over the most minor things. Like, we make full podcast episodes out of the tiniest differences. We generally are the same. Believe it or not, from our public appearance, we agree on so many things. Like, even book interests, we agree on a lot, but we focus on things we disagree because that's more fun. So and when it comes to video idea, and on video ideas, like 99% of the time, it's just, we're on the same page. We try it out. And usually the ones that don't work are where, that I would, not feeling it, or what's a good grab? I don't think that would grab an audience either. We sort of.
It also becomes a little difficult because there are plenty of really good video ideas that would make a good video essay or a very good presentation. But it doesn't really work for a conversation between the two of us. And so ultimately,
you want to send those ones my way then?
Oh yeah, we'll send you a picture of our board.
Yeah, we got plenty of those.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. It has to be something that there can be a conversation about.
Yeah, there's been plenty of times where, like, I would love to talk about a bunch of different books. However, Austin here has not read the book yet, and so. And I know he doesn't like spoilers, especially the books he wants to read. And so I can't really talk spoilers about a book with him here. So we'll try and do a spoiler-free pitch. Well, we've been trying those. Or, it just makes it a little bit more difficult, but I think it gives our videos kind of a unique spin that you don't see very often in BookTube.
And it also helps that, even starting the channel in the first place, motivation is one thing. You buy the equipment. I know, Bookborn, with your story, you were a blogger, right, back in the day, and then you always wanted to make a channel.
No, I was never a blogger.
I had that completely wrong then.
Wanted to be a blogger, and then realized that blogging was dead by the time I got around to it.
Got it. So, well, you always wanted to be, but you never did it. You were like, I'm motivated to do it, but then one day you just did it, right? You decided, okay, I'm going to make a YouTube. I'm going to do this. For us, it was a lot easier to start because, okay, we bought the equipment, and now we rely on the other person. Like, okay, you can't just stop because there's another person relying on you, so it's easier to keep the momentum going. Whereas if this was just one of us, people would probably stop, especially, if it was Richard on a channel alone, oh my God, it would do awful. Like, imagine Rich just there alone doing that. But it does help that it's both of us because you motivate me, and it's more disciplined to come on and do the whole thing.
Even if a video doesn't do well, I can look back at it as like, hey, that was a really fun conversation to have.
Yeah.
And so even if a video doesn't do particularly well, I still had fun.
Oh, yeah.
Versus it's kind of hard if you do a video by yourself.
When was your first video posted?
March of 2022.
Yeah.
Yes.
So just a little over a year and a few months.
Yes.
Just a little over a year ago.
Yep.
So
our first video was on The Way of Kings.
It was? Yes, Way of Kings.
Number one thing you've learned in a year?
Well, in all honesty, the correct answer is you never stop learning. There's at no point where things are.
You don't think there's a biggest thing you've learned, though? Some things are bigger than others.
Wow. So first you have us fight, then you have us make up, and then you have, wow.
Sorry.
We've had so many I can give a lot of advice on like technical issues for starting a YouTube channel.
You guys have never had technical issues, though.
Oh yeah, never. Not once, ever. Content-wise, I would say the best thing is don't try and force something. Just because you see other people doing a video on it and you think you should, and when you try and force yourself to cover content, it just generally won't come across authentic and it won't come out well. So we've tried forcing ourselves to review shows that we don't particularly, not that we even dislike it, we're just not interested. And it comes out poorly, and it's a waste of everyone's time.
That's
I would say actually don't force yourself to do content that you're just doing it because everyone else is.
That's a great point. I'd say for me, it is, and this is the most valuable, I think, life skill it gave. It might not look like it, but compared to our first videos, I'm able to construct a sentence better. I mean, I'm still have a lot to learn, a lot to grow, but my ability to talk to a camera, to you, or to carry on something and ask questions and have more active listening is a lot better, because usually in conversation, we've talked about this as well off camera, it's a lot easier to just say what you want to say. And I still stumble into that even on the podcast all the time. It keeps you more attentive. Hey, there's other people. Bookborn's here. We can't keep talking about the rating system together the whole time. I think we fall into that trap again. But usually I'm better about it. So that's the number one thing. It's just the talking and more active listening, trying to get all that narrowed down. And I can't wait to see a year from now, it'll be hopefully better. So that's for me.
And it's interesting you say that, because I think I vaguely knew that you needed camera skills, but I didn't really think much of it. Like, I'm a decent public speaker, so I wasn't worried. And then you get in front of the camera and you're like, wow, I just filmed the whole video and wasn't looking into the lens the entire time, which is a little different for you guys since you talk to each other. But there's all these things you learn about how to be on camera. It's very interesting.
Yeah, how was that for the first time? Because for us, it was more natural to, hey, we're talking to each other and there's a camera. For you and many YouTubers, but you're just looking at the camera, having a conversation with yourself. Was that weird at first?
Yeah, I mean, don't go watch my first videos. Like, absolutely not. They're still up there. And the worst part is, like, my first video has randomly a lot of views because it was a Sanderson video. And I'm like, how is anybody getting through this video? Like,
right.
I can't watch it. I mean, I don't even want to know. I refuse. I'm never going to go rewatch any video pretty much I've ever produced. Actually, is it easier if you have another person, or do you just also hate the sound of your voice and everything you say and do when you rewatch a video?
Oh, we totally do. Though you get over it with time.
I think especially editing the videos and listening to the videos over and over again every episode, I finally got used to it, to where I definitely hated my voice first 6 months for sure, and now I'm just used to it.
Also, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not sure, but I think there is a component of when you talk with your own voice, your ears are hearing your own voice not just through the sound waves, but also the vibrations that you actually feel in your bone when you talk. You hear your voice typically like a little bit lower than what other people hear. And so when you hear your voice on camera or on audio, it sounds different than how you hear yourself, but it's only slightly different. And that causes you to think that it's off and wrong somehow. It's like the uncanny valley, but of audio. I believe that's a reason why almost everyone hates their own voice.
Sounds right. Yeah.
Okay, I am going to have to go research that now.
Yeah, it sounds accurate. I think you told me that, though. So my source is... Oh, wait, so my source is you, so I don't know if that's 100%, but that makes sense.
Why do we hate our own voices on film? I'll keep that up for later.
Typer. Did you hear how fast that typing was? Wow.
Quick type.
That is one of a random skill I have. I actually am an extremely fast typer.
What's your words per minute?
I don't know. For a while, it was like 120.
Oh, okay.
Damn.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm still that fast since I'm not in school, but yeah, I can type really quick.
Yeah.
It looks like the research is showing that it is what you said.
Nice.
Yeah, it's our anatomy. It's like our anatomy of our skull, and so like the way we hear a voice versus the way we hear it on film gives us a cognitive dissonance.
Yeah. Interesting.
They actually make bone conductive headphones where the headphones actually sit behind your ear and vibrate, and it vibrates the bone behind there, and so you're not hearing through your ear, but you're hearing through the vibrations of your skull. It's a lot of construction workers use it. But
yeah, I've only used them once, and it was when I was that's what they use when you climb the Sydney Bridge, so you can hear the leader's voice over the sound of the traffic. They use those ones. It's a weird experience.
Interesting. So when it comes to that, then, so Rich's whole spiel, that was correct. That was factual. we kind of take the
let's
stance
not say
on
factual, because we didn't look at like the actual studies, but it seems like the hypothesis
the
is
headline
correct.
of the article.
That's my point, is that we take the stance on all of our videos. We don't, we are jokes, and we don't take everything we say. It's not factual. With your videos, I get more of the presence of you research them and you have more of an authority on what's right. Do you take more responsibility of, hey, what you're saying on these videos is not, I mean, you have your opinions, but you usually bring up studies, you bring up things that we wouldn't bring up here. We just bring up opinions all the time. You typically have more of a foundation, so you hold yourself to that responsibility.
I mean, I don't think it makes my opinion any better necessarily. I think it's just a different viewpoint. I have just always been fascinated by research and numbers and data, and that is just something that informs my worldview. Now, depending on the topic, that might make it more informed, like if it's something where that's like a useful thing. But the thing is so I did a lot of statistics in college. It wasn't my main degree. I just really fell in love with statistics. So I taught it while I was in college, and kind of had it as an emphasis for my graduate degree. And the thing about statistics, like what you learn in statistics is like, numbers can't tell you everything. Like the research, as fascinating as research is, there's always issues with it, especially depending on how data was collected. Which is why I always just like really encourage people to take a basic stats class. It will really teach you a lot about research that you might read, because you really need to read, like, how was this collected? When was it collected? How many people was it collected? How did they get their sample? Because that's going to influence, and the perfect example is the video you guys made in response to my spoiler video. Because when you look at the sample of people they collected, for example, it was more women than men, which can influence something. It was, like you guys brought up, only short stories, right? So this was not people super invested in reading long series. Like that changes the data. And so while I think that was a very interesting study as a jump off point to have a discussion, research is just never the end all be all. It's just one way to inform our world and our opinion.
It's a great point, because I do joke a bit about how, I don't know, when someone I really dislike general debates or conversations where I kind of consider it just a study tennis match where people throw studies at each other. To me, it's one of the most infuriating ways to argue about any given topic, because typically you're arguing about studies and no one actually brings up a study that both people have read, and then you discuss the results of a study you both comprehend. No, it's, I read the headline of one article that says something and I didn't read further, and then the other person hasn't read it, and to a point where it's pointless. I'm just using the idea of a study I am taking the authority that a study in name gives me, but you're using that you're stealing that authority. And so in general, I'm just never a fan of when someone brings up like, oh, well, this study said, unless
why
it's
do
something
you
like
watch
your
my
video,
channel?
where you go
is that like
deep into
90% of my channel is me saying that? Like,
well, again, the point being is you actually go into the study instead of just saying, oh, here are results of some study I read. Haha, here we go, checkmate.
I think it's
sense.
really important, like, to understand. You can always find a study to argue your point, no matter what it is. And if you're not willing to read how the data was collected, you probably shouldn't bring up a study in conversation. So, like, if I have a video, I have read the fine print of every one of those studies and how they were collected. It does take a little knowledge to understand the language, but not much, which, again, highly recommend if you guys haven't taken a stats class. There's a ton of free ones online. It's not math like people think. It's just a lot of understanding the language used in research studies. That being said, research studies are very important. A lot of stuff you guys use and interact with daily is because enough studies were done to prove something with, beyond a reasonable doubt. Causation's pretty hard, but beyond a reasonable doubt, we can get there.
All right, I'm starting to gather. Bookborn, pro-science, Richard, anti-science. I'm kind of gathering.
That's what I was gathering too. Yeah.
Yeah, if you notice, I have not been the same on this entire pod since the whole Golden Sun thing. Like, I'm still thinking about that.
God,
like, you know,
still on
I'm
that.
still thinking about that. And, like, you have no idea. I was so happy before when you brought up how much you hated Kenobi. I was like, yes. How much you hated Rings of Power, yes. And then we were boom, 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 and boom. Sorry, because now I know Rich, we're going to get off this pod and we're going to talk, and it's going to just be like Rich going, oh, that was great. I'm going to be like, that was great, but we'll make a TikTok out of it. We'll do something.
I will,
oh, do you use TikTok for your channel, or how do you typically promote your stuff?
I am over 30. Of course I am not on TikTok.
Okay.
Like,
all right, wrong question.
I'm just kidding. No, I'm not on TikTok. I don't like time wasters, and I feel like I would feel like TikTok was a time waster for me in terms of like I would just go on it. I probably need to find a way to go on it to put my shorts on it and stuff, but
You know, you could do what I do. Is I don't even have TikTok on my phone. That's all Austin. Austin puts the TikToks on.
Well, but so you have Austin though. Like who's managing my? Like I'd have to pay someone to manage my TikTok.
Just child labor. Get one of your kids and say, well, you probably don't want.
You don't want your kid on TikTok.
My kids aren't even allowed on the internet. So yes, I'm for sure gonna go get them a phone and hand them TikTok. That makes sense.
What age?
That alone, I know you're a good parent.
Yeah, what age do you think you're gonna give your kid access to the internet? Have you? I mean, this was on Fantasy Files as well. I listened to this portion as well, and you said you're gonna wait a while, right?
A long time, yeah. We're pretty very, very, very low screen time in our household. I just don't want the dopamine hits of the internet. I don't want my kids receiving it, and like we're all guilty as adults of that. Which is why, actually, this is funny. So, like, you guys had to send me this link, and I was like, send it to my email, because I don't have any social media on my phone except for Instagram, because I really do need it for my book stuff. And the desktop Instagram is just so bad that I have to keep the app. And so I have an app limiter. I have something it's a different app. It's called Screen Zen. Highly recommend it if people want it. And it only lets me open Instagram so many times a day for a very limited window. It's 7 minutes. And so once that's up, I'm locked out for a while, and it's been super beneficial for me because now I don't waste time on Instagram. Like I'm never just doom scrolling. I am going on for a purpose and doing something. And so that's kind of how I approach it with my kids. Like I just want them to be intentional about the time they are spending and never just wasting away hours and not getting anything out of it.
Yeah, that's really smart. That's great.
Oh yeah.
To be clear, I'm not like anti-leisure time.
What we preach.
No. We have these conversations all the time. That's why we started the pod. It was just we share books as a thing, but we'll just talk about anything, and we'll go on hours. And that's like one of the things that comes up of, oh man, one day if we have kids, when would you give them access to the internet? And we're like, oh, we don't want them. Same thought process. So it's
the whole idea, the doom scrolling, the amount of where you get stuck with the dopamine hits to the point where going outside is no longer pleasurable anymore, or reading a good book is no longer, it's the
delayed gratification, right? Like a book is very delayed gratification. And I also think my brain just died a second. I had a good point, I thought. Oh, what I was going to say is, this is what it was.
I was going to say too much Instagram.
If you go on TikTok and you scroll for an hour and you sincerely like feel good and refreshed from that, then that's totally fine. Because like some people think video games are a waste of time, but you know what? When I sit down and get to play Tears of the Kingdom for an hour, it refreshes me. Like I feel really good. It feels the same as like when I sit down and read a book that I'm really enjoying. Like I get refreshment out of that. I feel like a little renewed. When I just scroll on like reels or shorts, I don't get that feeling. I end up feeling like sad after. So like I think that's the important thing for me. Like because I never want to like demonize like not being productive. Because like it's okay to just like not be productive. But is it actually like filling you and good rest time, if that makes sense?
I do see your point where the your point about doom scrolling, where you ask someone who just spent like 4 hours scrolling through TikTok and you ask him, are you having a good time? It's like, I stopped having a good time 3 hours ago.
Mm-hmm.
But you just get stuck in it's that
law.
I'm trying to remember
next
what is
one
the
will be
difference
good.
between an addiction versus a compulsion. I think there's a different where doom scrolling through TikTok or Instagram Reels or YouTube Shorts becomes kind of a compulsion where you're not having a good time, but for some reason it just sticks this habit in your head where you're looking for the next rush. That's why the algorithm kind of doesn't show you a great video one after the other. It's always a great video, then a poor video, and then a great one. And they do this so it plays with your emotions of you're always looking for that next peak and the next high. Because if you just saw 5 great videos in a row, you'd be satisfied, then you'd shut it off. Versus if you had one great video, then it goes down to a poor quality video, and you do that multiple times in a row, then you see another spike. It's the same thing of a casino.
I'm gonna need a study to back that.
No, but a casino operates the same way.
There are actually a lot of studies.
I'm joking.
I've read them.
But no, doesn't a casino operate the exact same way? They give you a small win, and then however many losses, then another small win to keep you invested.
There's not clocks in malls and casinos. Yep. These are tactics as old as time to get people using your product. It's any product.
Now, do you feel any tinge of guilt that you are also producing content on the internet?
Oh, all the time, which is why I was so anti-shorts for so long. And in fact, the only reason I started doing shorts, the only reason is because actually when I went to do that collaboration with Sanderson at his house in Utah, I was with these other content creators. It was such a great time. And we were talking about content creation. And I made the statement, like, I'm never doing a short. I don't want to contribute to that. And Murphy turned to me and was like, you have to, though. Like, because she has a YouTube person, because she's like a big deal. And they basically said they will punish channels who don't do shorts. So she was like, you gotta, like, you have to do it. I get what you're feeling. Like, that's how I felt, but you've got to do it. And that coming from her was like finally enough for me to be like, oh, I kind of like, I guess have to do the thing. But it's definitely not my favorite form because I don't want to contribute to that. And I hope the stuff I'm contributing is thoughtful and I try to hope that someone can leave one of my videos feeling they learned something, feeling that it was time well spent. I do hope that, but I do understand that I'm contributing to the problem. Yeah.
Well, yeah, we feel basically the same way. We've talked to each other on how we should limit the amount of YouTube we watch, and like, I'm using YouTube too much. We need to really stop it and and realizing that we're contributing to the exact same problem.
Yeah, we stopped mid podcast like an hour 10 in and told all of our viewers stop watching YouTube. Just
watch our video.
Just watch our videos and none else.
That's it. Could you tell us what else did you learn from Murphy? Can you give us more of that?
By the way, incredibly jealous that you got to go to Utah.
She's so like the nicest person on the planet, and we talked about I don't know. Yeah, I could tell you. I could try to remember. It was all the same thing. You get any content creator in a room, and we're all like, we could quit tomorrow. We hate this, but we also love it. That's like we all said the same thing.
That's a great way to summarize the pros and cons of BookTube right there. I mean, you hate it and you love it. And we are too early on to where we don't hate it enough yet. We're still loving it, but maybe as we get, I can't imagine for someone like Murphy or Daniel Green, when you are that big.
Just exhausting.
Who knows?
It's dealing with people becomes more exhausting. That is the thing that becomes the most exhausting is just you can never make people happy. It's like I will save comments to laugh about, like Rings of Power, or it might have been The Wheel Time. It was one of those. They were both Amazon shows. Like in the same video, I had people yelling at me because they said I was an Amazon shill and that Amazon must have paid me for this review. And then another review that said I'm just a dumb book lover who could never be happy with whatever they produced. And this was the same video. Like, was one person interpreted me as like in love with the show, and the other person interpreted it as like I would never be happy. And that it becomes so exhausting to be just hit with that day in and day out. Like, the more comments my videos get, like dealing with that, because as an average viewer, when you're going to a video, you only see the most upvoted comments. And in general, the most upvoted comments, top comments, are all lovely. They're all thoughtful. They're all nice. But as the content creators, I don't know if you've experienced this, you are getting everything. And it's why I used to respond until maybe like 3 months ago. I used to respond to every comment I got, no matter what. Even this sometimes was hundreds of comments. And finally, I was like, for my own mental health, like, I have to take a step back from reading like the barrage of commentary about me as a person daily. And so like to think of someone like a Daniel and Murphy who've been doing this for years and are just huge, I can't imagine the mental toll that takes.
What's your advice to other booktubers? Is it to stop reading the comments? Is it to take a step back? Because I know this just was announced today. I mean, this video will be up in a week, but Daniel Green's going through a mental health break. We don't know all the details, but I think that was just announced like a couple hours ago or so. And I don't know what it's attributed to. I won't speculate. But just going off of what you said there, what would you recommend as far as how the comments affect you?
I mean, the interesting thing about, I don't want to make any presumptions about Daniel, but he posted on Twitter a few months ago that he was taking a mental health break. And I was really shocked to see that he posted videos again. I was like, oh, that was really short. I hope everything's good. And so when I saw that today, I thought, oh, I just so empathized with it, where you're just like, oh, I'm actually fine. And then he was like, nope, didn't give myself the grace I really needed. So like, I really just hope that, he takes a lot of time, because I think it's hard. I'm sure he knows all the tricks. He knows way more than I do. What helped me recently, because I did notice like big YouTubers hardly ever respond to comments, and I used to never understand that, and now I get it. But for me, one of the joys of being on YouTube is having discussions with people. Like, that's why I started. So I never want to be the person who's not responding to at least a decent bulk of my comments. But what I've started doing to help me is I've tried really hard. I'm not always good at it. I fail. But I try not to look at any comments until my video's been up for several hours, and then go and just view the video and respond to comments that way, so that I'm only seeing the comments everyone else is seeing. I'm only seeing the upvoted top comments that everyone's agreeing with and liking. That you still get criticisms, but that means they're usually thoughtful criticisms. They're not just like yelling at you, or they're the thoughtful stuff. So that helps me a lot. And so if you ever start feeling overwhelmed, I'm just like, just wait till the cream of the crop rises, and don't think that you don't owe anyone to just yell at you. Like, you don't owe them your time. Like, I finally realized that. Like, I don't owe these people who are not respecting me my time.
Yeah, I always found it strange. I'm curious in the future if we still continue to grow and all that, and we'll have more comments and things like that. Currently, as I feel about most comments now, it doesn't seem to affect me as much personally. There are a few comments that actually do get to me, but normally it's because I think there is some type of truth to it. It's the comments where I maybe agree with them, and it's a criticism of like, I think maybe there's a nugget of truth in there. Those tend to actually do get me a little bit more emotionally. Like, on TikTok, we have something like 50,000 followers there, so we get a lot more comments and plenty of hate comments, but to the point where I know it's a short from a full long video that they're just not getting the context, and it just seems so distant that to me, it's mostly just funny.
Those comments are always kind of funny.
I haven't gotten there yet.
Like, those ones like, tend to be funny, but when you get it, here's how I liken it. You get, have you ever been, this is probably something I've experienced more as a woman. Have you ever been catcalled? Like, on the street, you're walking and someone shouts at you out of a car. Has that ever happened to you?
Bowling alley. But
I was there. Oh my God.
that was uncomfortable.
And also here's the thing, as a guy, like I can remember specifically one time, but that's it. That's only, only because it was rare do I remember.
So when someone just shouts at you randomly out a window, especially when it's like crude language, and if you're any woman, you've just had this happen a ton of times. It's like kind of scary and shocking. And it's not a big deal. You'd probably come in and you like tell a friend, you're like, oh, this kind of like shocking thing happened to me and whatever, and you blow it off. But if there was a 50% chance that every time you went and checked your mail, someone would be driving by shouting at you, you might be like, I kind of don't want to go check my mail. And that's how I now feel about my YouTube comments. Like, if there's a 50% chance someone's just like yelling expletives at me every time I go into my YouTube comments, it kind of makes it a little less fun. Even if it's not necessarily the content itself that's like extremely upsetting.
By the way, I am sorry for commenting that. I should stop.
Wait, comment? All the stuff you're commenting? I know you're actually my worst
I get too aggressive
offender.
at times.
I've had to block you. You keep making new accounts. I like don't know what I'm gonna do.
You definitely. I mean, we are at a smaller echelon to where we can't even talk to our experience yet because we don't have the it's
not enough. It's a strange thing of I'm not sure how we would be affected.
Yeah, and who was it? Was it Austin? I don't have the screen. Sometimes it's hard to tell. Was it Austin who said that it's only when it's personal that it hurts?
No, that was Rich.
Rich.
That was Rich, yeah. Do our voices sound that similar?
They don't. No, they don't sound similar, but it's just like when it goes fast, sometimes I can't remember without seeing the visual.
Good, because speaking of comments, I'm the one that usually has the light voice, they like to say.
The light voice?
Sorry, go ahead. You're saying with Rich and the personal?
Well, the personal thing, I think for me, where that comes is I hate being misunderstood. So the comments that get to me the most is when someone claims I said or meant something that is not at all what I meant or said. Those are the ones that like really rile me up because I just have this problem where I hate being misunderstood. I hate being misquoted.
Okay.
I hate, and those ones are the ones I think that get to me the most. It's not the ones just calling me names. It's like the people who clearly watched the first 3 minutes of a 20-minute video and then thought it was fine to comment.
Interesting.
That is interesting.
Yeah, I find most of those comments where they clearly just misunderstood, I find them mostly funny for now. I'm not sure, especially with shorts, I just don't really even consider them like, look, you watched maybe 10 seconds of a 30-second short. Like, whatever. It doesn't matter. Someone who watched maybe a full video where I gave full context, maybe I'd feel a little differently.
And you guys are also,
far,
your vibe's more fun. It's more entertaining. It's more funny. So you may have people taking things a little less seriously.
Very true. Very true.
And I don't know if that's a factor at all. I wish I was funnier. Maybe you guys can teach me some of your comedy ways.
I don't know. You goaded some real
some reactions.
No, was that? I was meaning that as a true compliment. Did it sound rude? I was not trying to be rude. I mean it. You guys are very entertaining.
No. Here's the thing. We really enjoy like all of our friendships here. Like we really enjoy roasting each other, and like our whole vibe and friendship is just joking at each other and seeing what's going to really get under each other's skin.
Well, we'll get canceled on YouTube. That's the question.
So that's our humor. We like making fun of each other, and that's with kind of all of our friends. In many ways, I'm wondering if that's kind of helped us with the comments. It's like, I don't think any comment has been as emotionally like knife twisting in the gut as the things that Austin has said about me.
Oh, jeez.
I still think.
My best friend and I, we like totally rip on each other all the time, but it's totally funny. It's different if it's some rando on the internet who like is being serious.
Yeah.
I still think about. I think I've mentioned this now multiple videos because I still think about it. Austin wants to. I was telling him like, hey, you should drink coffee. You don't drink coffee. Caffeine is great. You should totally drink coffee.
Never.
And he told me, Richard, if you were someone worthy of emulation, maybe I would actually drink coffee like you.
My proudest moment.
That hurt. That one stung. That one stung a bit, and I still think about it.
And I will say, this was after months of you trying to get me to drink coffee, and I was like, what's the one thing that would affect me? We're the same. And I went, oh yeah, that's it.
I shaved my head bald because you and the other guys kept making fun of my receding hairline. I shaved my head bald to remove that bullet from the chamber of your guys' jokes.
Therapist Bookborn, do we need to talk about it? Do we need to maybe discuss our feelings? You know, all feelings are valid here. I'll put my mom hat on. All feelings are valid. The way that we express our feelings may not always be valid. Austin, was it nice for you to express your feelings in that way towards Rich?
Here's the thing. He's made me stronger. He's made me Do
you want to give me your pitch, though? Because I've never drank coffee and I don't like caffeine. I'm just kidding. There's no pitch you could get me to drink coffee. But
living a caffeinated life is just better. The Industrial Revolution was on the back of coffee.
Here's the thing, though. Everything I've learned in my professional life has shown that I usually have the superpower of not relying on coffee. Like, when I'm up and I'm like the happiest and I am the most energetic morning person in my office and everyone else is dying and they're like, well, I just need my coffee. Who's winning there, you know?
You tell him, yeah. And make fun of his baldness, too. Come on, join me.
Well, I can't see the baldness, so.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, we do. I guess that does help with reading the comments is we are, and not even against you or me, right? Like we always dish back and forth, but even to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
You know, like, we are mean to ourselves.
Nothing anyone on the internet can say something meaner than I haven't already said
in the mirror, right?
In the mirror.
Yeah.
Well, that's true of everybody. You know, I think we're all extremely self-critical, but again, it's different if you're feeling misunderstood, which I think is why that gets to me more than a comment of someone being like, I don't know, you're ugly, you speak bad, you pronounce things wrong. Yeah, like, duh, I know that. Like, it's different, you know, than someone saying you said this when you didn't.
Yeah, I mean, in general, I hate being called a liar. That is the thing I've quit jobs over, where if someone questions my integrity, that personally rubs me the wrong way. So I can understand, like, and I think that's the same way of being misunderstood in the same way could kind of be seen as a form of lying, because you're portraying me as someone who I am not.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Man, this has been great for our relationship, Rich. This has just been, I feel closer.
Happy to help.
Bookborn, thank you.
Yeah, happy to help.
Thanks. And then, when you are not here, and thank you for the compliment, by the way. It was very kind coming from you. When you're not here, though, and when we don't have guests, the humor back and forth, it gets worse. It's not like funny or not anything, but it's usually just lower grade. Like, we just go to insults. You know what I mean? Like, we try to be clever, but we're really not. So... yeah, it gets really second grade on here.
I don't know. It makes you a tougher person.
Yeah. Well, Bookborn, you've been very generous with your time. Thank you so much. I mean, this is one of our longer episodes. Usually we do not go this long, so sorry if we went over your schedule. Very much appreciate this. You were a great guest. I mean, this was really fun for me.
It was a lot of fun for me as well.
I had a great time. Thanks. I'm sorry I talked too much.
No, you did not. Last thing to talk about, of course, do you want to plug anything going on, and of course your channel to all of our viewers? I
don't have anything new going on, but you can find me on YouTube at Bookborn and on Instagram at bookborn.reviews. On Instagram is where I post all of the books I'm currently reading and the ratings. So if you want to see my vibe check ratings and compare them to the subjective objectivity of To Ramble, please do.
I'm just so glad that you are aware of the rating system. That was the whole goal.
I could explain it to somebody else, so I can help if anyone asks.
Yes.
There we go.
Oh, my goodness. Yes. Okay. Bookborn, thank you so much. This was lovely.
All right.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.